Breakout on Wall Street. Buyers blast the Dow out of the doldrums and into record high territory on good economic news. President Clinton apologizes to Italy about the cable car tragedy. The Italian Prime Minister tells him that's not enough. And Alabama police say a man was beaten to death and burned because he was gay.
This is the CBS Evening News. With Dan Rather reporting from CBS News headquarters in New York.
Good evening. With a new jobs report showing the U.S. economy not too hot and not too cold, things were just right today on Wall Street. Were they ever? The Dow Jones Industrial Average soared up 268 points to a record close, its first time over 9,700. High-tech stocks also bounced back. The NASDAQ was up 44. CBS News business correspondent Anthony Mason has the numbers and the news behind them.
March has come in like a bull on Wall Street. With its two-day 450-point rally, the Dow ended the week up nearly 5%.
The markets put on a terrific performance today. They put on a terrific performance yesterday.
The catalyst today was February's job numbers. While the economy created 275,000 new jobs, the unemployment rate edged up slightly to 4.4%, and average hourly earnings were up a mere penny in the month. To Wall Street, that signaled inflation is under control and erased fears that the Fed chairman would raise interest rates.
When the Fed is your friend, everything wonderful happens. When Alan Greenspan goes against you, goodbye, Charlie. Leave town.
The markets also liked the sales that retailers rang up in February. Walmart, the nation's largest chain, said sales were up 17% over a year ago. The Gap reported a 32% jump.
The consumer won't quit. The consumer is a spending machine.
And what about the stock market? When will it quit?
I have to think that 10,000 is within easy reach based on today's performance.
At the end of the day, the Dow was only 260 points away, and with an interest rate hike now seeming out of the question, some believe Dow 10,000 could come as early as next week. Anthony Mason, CBS News, New York.
The booms in employment and stock prices don't resonate much in one patch of these United States, the oil patch. Falling prices have cost the oil industry hundreds of thousands of jobs in a 5-state region, as we see in this report from CBS's Jim Axelrod.
The invitation to the national party at the pump didn't make it to Hobbs, New Mexico.
Are people happy with the low gas prices here in Hobbs?
I would say no.
In the rugged desolation of eastern New Mexico, cheap gas is nothing to celebrate. Here, where they punch holes in the ground to put food on the table, they've lost half their oil jobs in 18 months.
It does affect the economy no matter what. It affects the grocery stores, retail, cars, anything in Hobbs is affected by the oil prices.
From parking places to retail spaces, downtown Hobbs is empty.
You go to the bank and they say, what's your 5-year plan? I wish I could give them a 5-year plan, I give them a 5-minute plan.
They are bowling, not drilling, as unemployment approaches double digits.
A normal work week for us is usually 60 to 70 hours a week.
And what about now?
You're lucky if some crews not even working 10.
It's the same story in oil patch towns from the bayous of Louisiana to the Colorado Rockies. Crime and bankruptcies are up. School enrollment and real estate values are down. It's so bad here in Hobbs, the Little League teams are losing their sponsors.
We got a baseball team. Here's a basketball team.
Dwayne Taylor's company services oil wells, but his trucks are idle, and all he can say to the kids is sorry.
We don't have the funding. We don't have the money to do it because we've been hit so hard. We're just trying to survive.
But where there is worry, there is warning. America is a guest at this party, not the host.
When something happens in the world market that affects that flow of oil to the United States, then you're going to see gas lines, then you're going to see fuel costs soaring out of control.
It's an alarm sounding from the oil patch, where success is as much about hope as toughness, and low prices are testing both. Jim Axelrod, CBS News, Hobbs, New Mexico.
Later in tonight's broadcast, we'll see the other side of the oil price equation, gas stations competing to see how low they can go. You may also want to note that there's trouble in such industries as the timber business and steel as two other examples, besides oil, where people are having difficulty. In Washington, President Clinton had to weather some difficult moments today at an Oval Office meeting in private and at a White House news conference in public. CBS News White House correspondent Scott Pelley has late details on how President Clinton dealt with two hard but very different subjects. Scott?
Dan, a senior official here uses the words anger and anguish to describe how the Italian delegation here today felt about yesterday's verdict in the Italian cable car trial. One source said that the Italians actually called the White House last night and this morning to warn them about how the Prime Minister felt about all of this. Apparently, the meeting went well in the Oval Office today, but during the news conference today, Mr. Clinton was struggling to answer for the verdict.
At least it's important for the people of Italy and for those families to know that the United States is not trying to duck its responsibility and that we are heartbroken and horrified by what happened, and we're going to do our best to make sure that nothing like that ever happens again.
A Marine source says manslaughter charges pending against the navigator Joe Schweitzer may be dropped in light of pilot Richard Ashby's acquittal. Both men, though, still face charges of evidence tampering. It was revealed today that Ashby sent a letter of apology to the Italian families, but the Marine Corps declined to deliver it. The Prime Minister demanded justice, but he added that even that may not be enough.
With so many casualties, with so many deaths, you can hardly ever say you are satisfied. It is a word I cannot use.
On another subject, Mr. Clinton said that he did not watch the Monica Lewinsky interview this week, but he did offer these thoughts on the end of the scandal.
What I hope is that she will be permitted to go on with her life. And I hope that all the people who have been hurt by this, including totally innocent people who have massive legal bills, will get the help they need. And I'm determined to do what I can to help them. This was a pretty tough thing for everybody involved. And I wish her well. I hope it works out all right for her.
Mr. Clinton also indicated that he does not mind that she is making millions of dollars from the national ordeal. Dan?
Scott Pelley at the White House. Still to come on the CBS Evening News, a multi-million-dollar settlement for ex-convicts freed from death row. How China learned secrets about sophisticated U.S. nuclear weapons. And the gasoline price wars, how low can they go? Police in Colombia said tonight 3 bodies believed to be Americans kidnapped last week have been found. The men and 2 women, riddled with bullets, were found just across the border in Venezuela. The 3 were reportedly kidnapped by suspected leftist rebels after they spent a week living with what the Colombians call their indigenous people. Before his news conference today, President Clinton issued a statement saying he will press for a new federal law to help prosecute and prevent hate crimes. The president was reacting to the brutal death of a gay man in Alabama. CBS's Jim Stewart reports the latest case in point of Americans' problems with hate.
You can still see the raw burn marks on the ground where someone threw Billy Jack Gaither's body on a pile of burning tires. Today, police in Sylacauga, Alabama, are holding 2 men who say they did it because Gaither was gay.
The initial investigation indicates that the cause of death was blunt trauma force.
In details chillingly similar to the beating death last October of University of Wyoming student Matthew Shepard, the suspects in this case reportedly planned the attack after one complained the victim had made a pass at him. At least one family member denied Gaither was homosexual. Townspeople say it doesn't matter.
What they done to Billy Jack is nobody deserves nothing like that. I mean, you know, something has to be wrong with somebody that can do something like that to another person.
Nobody's quite sure how many hate crimes based on sexual orientation there are in America because no 2 states keep track of them the same way. In 1997, the last reporting year, for example, Alabama said it had none. No hate crimes whatsoever.
This shows that there is a patchwork of different laws in different states and different urgency in different states. And that's why we need a very strong federal response that is uniform throughout the country.
The FBI said today it is monitoring the Sylacauga burning, but has left the case to local authorities. Jim Stewart, CBS News, Washington.
What is the price for spending much of your life in prison, even on death row, for a crime others committed? Cook County and 4 Chicago men agreed today on a multi-million-dollar settlement that starts to repay such a debt. CBS's Cynthia Bowers has the story.
The payout is the largest of its kind ever in this state. $36 million to the men known as the Ford Heights Four, who spent up to 18 years behind bars for a crime they did not commit.
I think it's a strong message to people who manufacture evidence and frame people and put them on death row, that they cannot do that.
In a written statement, prosecutors say the settlement compensates the 4 men fairly. But Dennis Williams, one of 2 sentenced to die, disagrees.
They could give me back the entire 18 years that they took out of my life. That would be compensation.
With this enormous settlement, Cook County has spared a lengthy and embarrassing trial. In their lawsuits, the Ford Heights Four allege they were deliberately framed by sheriff's police, who withheld evidence and ignored strong leads pointing to the real killers.
The other men went free, actually killed other people, and our men were on death row for many years.
The 4 men were in their early 20s when they were picked up for the killing of a young couple. Dennis Williams says sheriff's deputies put a gun to his head and told him,
if I didn't confess, that they would splatter my brains all over the wall.
How can we continue to trust our system to put people to death when we know that the system is so broken that we're going to pay $36 million to fix the damages caused to these individuals?
So far, 11 condemned men in Illinois have gone free, increasing demands to halt executions in a state where the troubled justice system has time and time again put the wrong man behind bars. Cynthia Bowers, CBS News, Chicago.
The U.S. government today unveiled what it calls its newest sport utility vehicle safety campaign, because SUVs are twice as likely to roll over as regular vehicles. Partly under pressure from the automobile manufacturers, new updated warning labels say drivers should avoid abrupt maneuvers and what's called excessive speed. About 60% of SUV accident deaths involve rollovers. There is explosive new information tonight about a mini atomic weapon and a possible big breach in U.S. nuclear security with international implications. CBS's Cheryl Atkinson has the facts about how some of the most highly classified U.S. nuclear weapons technology appears to have gotten into the hands of Communist China's rapidly growing military.
The W-88 is America's most sophisticated nuclear weapon, a precise small warhead used on Trident II submarine-launched missiles. CBS News has learned that a congressional committee has confirmed reports that China obtained vital design information for the warhead. Sources say China was able to recruit scientists from the Department of Energy labs responsible for the U.S. nuclear weapons program. There's no evidence that the Chinese have been able to build any weapons based on this espionage, but the W-88 is much more advanced than the nuclear weapons China has relied on for decades. The report finds this is the most serious of many security breaches involving China in the last 20 years. And sources tell CBS News the espionage may still be going on today because the spies have never been identified and could still be at work in this country. Today, the White House disputed that, saying it's tightened security at the weapons labs. The FBI is investigating exactly how China obtained the secrets.
Congressional sources insist there are still serious security problems at the National Weapons Labs and are fighting to declassify their report. The White House is pushing to keep much of it secret, citing national security. Cheryl Atkinson, CBS News, Washington.
In the California sky today, an emergency escape pod for the International Space Station got its latest shakedown test. NASA's prototype for the pod was dropped from the wing of a big B-52, and it was high-tech, high-flying, and picture-perfect. The drag chute slowed it down. Then a glider chute brought it on home to Earth. Test and mission accomplished. Former Senator Bob Dole is in the Balkans tonight, pushing the Kosovo peace plan. At President Clinton's request, Dole met with ethnic Albanian leaders, and they said they might sign the plan early next week. This came as a Serb offensive rolled on in central Kosovo, tanks targeting rebel positions as villagers ran for their lives across open fields. Right now, probably the most brutal conflict in the world is the civil war in Sierra Leone, a war that has wrecked a once prosperous African nation and has now descended into mass violence against civilians. Among the victims are thousands of children kidnapped and then forced to fight on both sides of the war. CBS's Richard Roth has the story and the disturbing pictures from the savagery in Sierra Leone.
When the 7-year-old Civil War spread to the capital, Freetown, almost 80% of the city's buildings were burned or destroyed. 150,000 people lost their homes. More than 4,000 civilians lost their lives. And by the time rebels had been pushed out of the capital, at least 300 children had disappeared, abducted by insurgents who built an army of young conscripts. 10-year-old Moses is a boy government troops snatched back. He'd been fighting for the rebels for 2 years when he was captured in Freetown. Terrified he was about to be shot, he wails because he doesn't speak. He's never spoken. But instead of being killed, he was delivered to an abandoned resort on Sierra Leone's coast, where the United Nations now cares for young fugitives from the world's saddest army. More than 10,000 children have been forced to fight on both sides in Sierra Leone's civil war, some only 7 years old. The cameraman who recorded Moses' capture on a Freetown street has seen dozens just like him.
I just hope for their sake that the outside world will give us the support and let these children have the lifestyle that they deserve as children.
Aid agencies say an international treaty to prevent children from being forced to become soldiers will take years to ratify. For now, all that these former child soldiers can depend on is the small comfort they give to each other. Richard Roth, CBS News, London.
Earlier tonight, we reported on the Southwest oil patch where low oil prices have put people out of work. That's the downside of a phenomenon that, for most of us, means fun, profit, or both. It starts at the gasoline pump, where this week the national average, is just 91 cents for a gallon of unleaded regular. And that's only the average. CBS's Bill Geist went looking for some really cheap gas, and he found it.
Gas prices are plummeting.
Fantastic. I love it.
Gas is now cheaper than it was in 1919 when they began keeping price records.
It's unbelievable.
And cheaper than when gas stations were celebrated in song.
Oh, we're the men of Texaco. We work from Maine to Mexico.
Adjusted for inflation, gas is now cheaper than ever. It's cheapest of all, according to the AAA, here in Augusta, Georgia.
69 cents. Loving it.
Can't believe these prices.
Where station manager Quinn Meadows scrambles to keep up with continually plunging prices and the competition. Down the street, station manager Odessa Bradley is making the first price move of the day. Next door, manager Rebecca Acord quickly drops her price. Tension mounts. All eyes are on Quinn.
Hesitate just a tad so that kind of builds a little suspense for him.
He has the biggest numerals in town.
In this business, you have to have a little bit of theatricality.
66. They're playing hardball. The Smile station reacts instantly.
If somebody goes down, we're right there with them.
Drivers do too. You saved 30 cents in the last 5 minutes.
I think that's great.
They come from miles around.
They go by and they go, whoa, Nellie, look at there, look at there.
Have you ever seen gas prices this low?
Not since I was in my 20s.
At these prices, she's getting some to go.
I think they're more or less giving it away.
The price of gas is now cheaper than water, 9 or 10 times cheaper, and it's closing in on air. So how do they stay in business?
We pretty much sell everything outside of meat and clothes in here.
Cheap gas draws us into stations that are now banks, drugstores, supermarkets, you name it. You do more pumping or shopping?
A little bit of both. Do it all here.
I have this one gentleman that he spends like $900 to $1,000 on lottery tickets.
In one stop?
One stop.
But lottery numbers aren't usually winners. These days, Quinn Meadows' numbers always are. They really pull them in.
Yep, just like magnets.
Bill Geist, CBS News, Augusta, Georgia.
And that's part of our world. Now here's Morley Safer with a look ahead at Sunday's 60 Minutes.
If the jury heard from the same people 60 Minutes heard from, would they still have convicted the nanny? And why didn't they hear from them? Plus, what did Henry Kissinger really think of Richard Nixon? Find out when the former Secretary of State gets really candid on Sunday.
For the CBS Evening News, Dan Rather reporting. Have a great weekend. Good night.
For news 24 hours a day, CBS.com on the Internet and on our interactive partner, America Online, at keyword CBS News.